part with that, Frank, is that it's all tied into the database. So without the routing software and database, none of that, that's what drives it all. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. And I think that Joel and I were talking earlier. I understand what, when I made the comment about tying in, with our payroll system. That's not really something that's a major concern with us right now. Our major concern is the how clunky. I'm not talking to Samsara right now. I'm talking to you guys. That we feel that the Samsara punch in, punch out function, which is important to us, is really clunky, and it gets even clunkier when you have a driver and an aide on board too. So when we looked at yours, it was like, wow, this seemed like it was pretty straightforward. We're seriously considering going with Transfinder anyway. So maybe it's a way to just kind of use Samsara in the short term, perhaps, or for cameras and for GPS and for safety things and all the other wonderful stuff that it does, but maybe bypass it as far as having folks log in and log out of their vehicles and using it to pay them.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I get it, Frank, and hopefully you can understand where I was coming from. I've been in the position over 10 years, as I'm sure you guys have, where all of a sudden we do this, and then we start hearing it doesn't do this or it doesn't do that. It's like, wait a minute. This is one of those types of solutions that's part of the routing software.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that was my only thing. We can show you, Zach can take you through and show you all this cool stuff, and I know we're doing it right now for a lot of different people. I just wanted to have that one caveat that, man, if it doesn't do something, it's not because, we sold it to you that it would do everything.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, we appreciate that. We're kind of learning, under promise and over deliver. That doesn't always translate everywhere.
I know. And then, listen, man, that's just in my 10 years of doing it. There's nothing. Sorry, Joel. What was that?
So it's called the bait and switch. That's what.
Yeah. Well, and there's just, we've been in business 30 years, guys. That's why we have 2,000 clients. If it was up to my CEO, it'd be, yeah, we do it. Of course we do it. Look at these people we have doing it. And I would just rather say, guys, let's say we do it. Try it out. If it's for you, great. It's in there. Rock and roll. But don't forego getting a whole payroll system because you might be able to do it with this. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, cool. With that being said, Zach, you there?
Hey, yeah, I'm here, you guys. So, yeah, good insight for me.
And
but yeah,
poor Zach is in Austin, and Austin on a Friday, I'm sure it's a little bit nicer than Jersey, New York.
Oh man, that's a good place to be.
Summer's getting here already. I think we hit 90 degrees the other day.
Oh man.
Oh boy. I'll take it, Zach. I'm coming.
Yeah. Well, I want to make sure to show you guys, what you want to see and kind of touch on some of that stuff. It sounds like timekeeping a piece, but also just kind of the tablet and navigation, or like you said, what the interface looks like. So I wanted to kind of take you through like kind of a quick overview, just to get a sense of what the tablets look like out on the buses, and what that interface looks like here, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. We're trying to. We're dealing with a, not the most sophisticated workforce as far as technology, and in addition, and not that they're not sophisticated to be able to do it, but they want to get in, they want to log in, start tracking their time, and get on the road, and that's what we want. That's when they're making money.
Sure, that makes sense. So I'll kind of run through. First of all, I mentioned this last time we talked, but from the tablet, drivers will be able to see their schedules. This is nice in case they need to make substitutions. So from here, if they need to swap out the bus that they're going to be driving, or they need to tap the little plus sign and say, actually, I'm picking up an extra route for another driver who called in, they can do all that kind of from the navigation screen in here. Right? From there, obviously we got navigation. Navigation's pretty straightforward. We mentioned some of the unique stuff for us is using your local maps. So, what streets are closed, pieces like that. You're going to get spoken directions as you're out on the road, those kind of things. Drivers can actually make changes to routes before they hit the road, so if they're going to skip a stop or anything like that, it'll reroute and do all that for them out there. Obviously, attendance is built in here, so if you're tracking attendance, drivers can tap the kids on, get information like that. We actually try to make this a full route sheet here too. So when you pull up to a stop, drivers are going to see notes for the stop. They can tap a student's more info if there's any information there they need to see, like medical info or parent contact. So, Wayfinder is really here to be navigation, attendance, but because we can include in our kind of customizable forms, drivers can log in and like back up, see whatever forms you want to see, right? If they want accident report forms or student discipline forms, you can throw those on there and they can access them. But for timekeeping, it can be really simple. They come in here, they type in their driver number or name, they can plug it in, clock in and out, what type of trip is it. And then if you got an aide on the bus too, I submit this form, I hit timekeeping again, put in the aide's number, clock in. So I don't need to log out of the whole system, log back in as a different user. It's a big catch there.
So how would they? So what? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joel.
No, you're good. You're good.
I was going to say, like, so what would they? If I'm Carlo Almond there, I would log in. We're using Galaxy A7 Android tablets, so they would get into the bus and they would log into the Transfinder app.
That's it.
Right.
Yeah, it's a Wayfinder downloaded through the Play Store. So big yellow W for an app. They would tap it, and then they would log in one time, right? They put in, a lot of districts set it up as like an employee number, right? That's my username and password. I plug those in, and I'm logged into the app.
So can you show me? Can you show us how that actually works? So if I go into the app and open the app, does it ask for me to log in? Me personally, I log in. And
good question. Let me take a look, because I grabbed that video the other day that I sent over. Yeah, and I get this kind of stuff too all the time, right? Because whenever we're talking about these apps that are going to be out on a bus, people have a concern around, can my drivers actually manage and figure this kind of interface out, right? That seems to be what it comes down to.
Yes.
All right, let me see if I have that kind of login screen here. I wish I could just plug my tablet in here and share my screen. I don't have the right connection set up for that right now.
Just as an FYI, conference, I found I had a similar issue with trying to share my screen, like a tablet screen, and I found that you could do that on Microsoft Teams.
Really? So
Yeah.
through Teams I could, oh yeah. So just log into Teams on my Wayfinder. So this is, kind of credentials blurred out, but this is the landing page that a driver would initially see when they're logged in.
Okay.
So I can have my client ID and username remembered, so when I come in here, those are pre-filled. Client ID would be, we would set something up unique like Holcomb or something like that. And then again, username and password can be set as their employee numbers if they get an employee number. So they log in one time, they hit the remember me, you get those fields filled out, and they would just plug in their kind of password here. So I'm plugging in 22473, whatever it is, and I hit login to get into my kind of main landing page there.
Okay. So this is kind of like a driver getting onto their bus. They go through this procedure.
That's it. And look, we work with a lot of districts that have managed devices. And by having managed devices, you can control a little bit, right? I imagine you don't want drivers pulling up YouTube and things like that on these devices. So with a managed device, you can make it really simplified too, depending on what kind of software management tool you're using, right? Mobile device management.
Yes.
You can make it so they've got like 3 simple icons that they tap, right? Depending on what kind of tool.
Well, we're using Samsara has their own MDM, which we're using, and that allows us to lock things down. That we just put the apps that we want on there. Now, do you know offhand if Samsara allows your app to be put on there?
I don't know offhand,
Okay.
honestly.
I think it does.
Yeah, it would be a separate app. But my question is this: when you log in onto this screen, this is not clocking in. The clocking in aspect would be from that forms menu.
You got it. So yeah.
Is it possible? Is it possible to have that login screen as a say Holcomb wide account to log in, right? So that this information is already set up. Matter of fact, when they turn on the bus and and the tablet is powered on by, however it's connected, this information can it be just uniform across all the yards, and then once they clock in, they use the form instead of having personal information on this screen? Is that
See, Joel, I think, and Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, that part of the reasoning behind that is because of the student data that's housed on this as well.
Gotcha.
That's why we set them up as a unique ID, because we don't want just anybody to be able to get on there and get in. This is like the gatekeeping to that data on the route. You know what I'm saying? And that's also how we characterize who gets what data.
So how about this? So now if I'm logged in as the driver, so you go to the next step, and I would go to forms, and now I'm going to clock in.
Sure.
How would my aide clock in? Do they have to? Do they have to log out and log in with their own ID?
No, so that's not going to be necessary. So once you get past, once a driver logs in here, which again, exactly like Dave said, right? We want unique credentials here, because once you get logged into the screen, which is the next step, this is where you're going to be able to access route information, student information. So you need those credentials here. But once they're logged in, they tap their forms. They're going to see the forms that you have set up for them, and maybe you're only using timekeeping forms. Keep it simple.
We're probably going to use pre-trip as well.
Sure. Yeah. And so they'll see them all in the same place. But at that point, a driver taps the timekeeping. They fill theirs out. I'm clocking in. It's a regular trip or whatever your trip types are. They'll come back here. Second user taps that same timekeeping form. They're just typing their name in and logging in there. So they don't need to log out of the whole system, go back to that landing page. You can have multiple users submit their time once you log in one time.
But the main login is based on the driver who initially logged in.
That's right, because they're going to see their route information, and like I said, we want to put that behind some credentials, because once you're logged into Wayfinder, you have access to all these other tools for seeing the students and seeing manifests and all that.
Gotcha. Now, how about logging out or knowing what their status is?
Like to be able to see, like, did I clock in, or what time did I clock in, things like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I understand the question you're asking. Yeah, so that's why I sent that video there. There's a piece towards the end that, okay, so once I've submitted my time, how do I see what my status is? From here, you can go ahead and see my submitted forms, right? So I can see forms that I've submitted for timekeeping, and it's going to say, hey, Z Morin, that was me, you clocked in at 1:18, right? So I can see where am I in, if I clocked out, when that was. So from the tablet, I could go ahead and see my punches.
Okay.
Now, again, when we talk about transparency, there's things that I know that timekeeping systems are offering that aren't built into our system today, right? So there's pieces like, this is not calculating my hours for me at this point, right? To do that, administrator would need to run a timesheet for me to be able to see the calculations. All right, this week, how many hours do I have? Today, there's no way to see that info on a tablet.
That's actually okay. That's okay for what our purposes are. So if I'm a driver I'm done my route now, and I come back, I have to remember. I have to remember to clock out.
That's right.
And then if I did clock out, I could go to the screen and I would see
my
out. And now,
here's the other piece.
What about the aid?
Also, I was going to say also, Frank, with that, you're going to have Samsara, so you're going to see the bus coming back to the yard.
Right.
If they did forget to punch out. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have that double checker there.
Yep.
And all right, that's great. And what about the aid? Would the aid, if you had two people logging in, would it show there in that same screen right there?
That's right. So you would see all the users that are logged into Wayfinder. So yeah, the driver and the aide would all be here. If I'm saying the warts and boils too, right? The other thing that I hear from timekeeping systems is they want to compare. They want to be able to see, hey, you were supposed to clock in at 8, you actually clocked in at this time, and this whole kind of self-management. That's another piece that they're not going to see today, right? They're going to see what we're seeing here, which is a form. I can submit it. I can capture whatever info I need, and I can see that info captured. But yeah, pieces I'm not seeing are what was my planned time to arrive, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that it allows. Joe, I'll chime in too. We're looking for the simplicity of it. That a driver gets. And this seems like it's more straightforward than the solution we're faced with right now.
Yeah, it is. So ideally, you would want the main login, that initial login page, since it contains sensitive information. You would only want the driver to have that information, which means if an aide came in, and tried to clock in, they wouldn't be able to until the driver bypassed that screen first. That
would be. I'm.
Or Zach, with the aid, they can sign in too. More, Joel, I think what that is a part of not just having some random person get on the bus and be able to see that.
Yeah, I don't.
You know what I'm saying?
Having aid have credentials to log into the Wayfinder tablet. But.
Okay, good enough.
So let's talk a little bit about a driver logs in. We saw what it looks like to capture data. What does it look like from your side as far as managing data? Because just to get a sense, how many drivers are you guys working with? What are we talking about?
250.
Well, there's about
50. It's a pretty reasonable, and I imagine now there's some management of time, right? People that miss punches or punch late and some of that management. So. I wanted to talk through what that looks like kind of on our end a little bit here, just so you have a sense of it, right? So all of the punches, again, are tied to your routing platform. So here I am in our software, RouteFinder Plus, which is where all of my routes, all my information, all my students, all that's stored here. But I'm going to have it stored with my staff record. So when I come into a staff record, I'll be able to see information like when did they punch in, when did they punch out, whatever information you want to keep track of. Do you guys use contracted hours? Are drivers set for certain contracts?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then just so I know, do you pay only on over contract, or how do you guys kind of manage timekeeping? What's important for what you're looking for?
Well, so the way we pay our drivers is they're guaranteed a certain amount of hours a week.
Sure.
And then we have cover drivers that are guaranteed a separate amount of hours per week. So we tend to find that they're completing their routes in a shorter amount of time than they're guaranteed. So we have to go back and adjust their hours every week.
By that, do you mean you deduct, like if they don't hit their contract hours, you deduct hours?
Let's say they're guaranteed 2 hours in the morning. They're guaranteed 20 hours a week, right? So so ideally 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. If their route takes an hour and a half, then we will adjust and add that 30 minutes so that they have 2 hours.
I gotcha.
That makes sense. And if they work past that, then it's straight time, whatever they earn past that.
Seems like extra work to go back and, but I get you. The point is, if they're contracted for 20 hours, you're going to send 20 hours by default over to payroll, and you're really just concerned if they work over contract, right? You're concerned if they work 25 or obviously 45, so that you can capture that pay over contracted hours, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I gotcha. So situation here is drivers are punching. I'm seeing their punches in real time. So just to show you, right, what a driver will see when they come in is a very simplistic form. This is in our web browser, but obviously they'd be looking at it from a tablet. That said, if for some reason it was easier for drivers to punch in from a computer terminal, this is all available through the web browser too.
Perfect.
And like you said, it's tied to the actual motion and route of their bus.
Well, so we'll touch on that, but it ties directly to the driver. Our system's storing, obviously GPS info we have coming in from Samsara, pieces like that. To make edits or changes here, a driver's punch comes in, and if I need to make an edit to one of those, I can come in and do that. I'll just show, what the driver sees versus what an administrator might see, right? They might need to make corrections to the actual time they punch. Maybe they were 15 minutes late because they were talking to somebody in the yard, or they had a missed in or out kind of punch. So administrators can make changes there and make those corrections as needed, kind of thing.
So let's say I have a couple of cover drivers that are just sitting in the lobby, and they clock in. They can clock in on a computer using that previous screen you showed.
Yep.
And I put them on a route that there's coverage needed, and they're on the road. When they log into the tablet, does it cause a conflict with the fact that they logged in on the computer?
No, because logging into the tablet again isn't the same process as a clock in, right? So I can have my login screen, I get logged in, and now I can run my route and do navigation.
Yeah, because they would already be clocked in. Okay.
That's it. But yeah. So so we hear that all the time. Like, well, what if I clock in on a bus and then it turns out there's an issue and I got to jump over to a different bus? That's fine. The clock in process is not tied to logging into a tablet here. Perfect. At that point, again, really the reporting piece. So if I want to run a report, you can see I'm in my development kind of area with all these reports. But if I want to run my reports, I can run those, and these are fully customizable. And these are where we can kind of build out what it is you need. But this is where you can run timekeeping pieces, get calculations for the hours. For 50 drivers, right? You could even set this up so their time card is scheduled to come and get emailed out to them every week. That way they can review it, make sure everything looks good before it gets submitted to payroll.
And like I already asked this before. This can be exported as a PDF, but also as an Excel file too, right?
Yeah, you got it, right? So all of our reports. So if I go to view the report, that report I just ran. By default, I have it set up as a PDF, but if I want to run that as an Excel, as a CSV, I can go ahead and do that too.
That's great, because then we can manipulate the data.
Sure. And if you're gonna send this to another system like a payroll system, obviously you'd wanna send them a CSV file or something like that they can read.
Frank, I didn't hear you say you manipulate payroll data, right?
No, I did. Actually, I obviously didn't mean it that way. I meant moving columns around, things like that.
But it does. If you want to run all your payroll and then sort by just show me these types of trips, or something like that, you can see how many hours you've clocked for this pay period for just your regular runs versus your shuttles or things like that. Yeah.
Great. All right.
Last piece, and look, this is a request that we've had. I'm going to be fully honest. This is not something that I have fully set up today, but what we're rolling out with is our dashboards where I can combine information together. And so with a dashboard, that's where I can really tie information together, like we were talking about earlier, where if I want to, I could pull up, hey, go ahead and show me my staff time cards here, and then go ahead and show me my vehicle GPS events. So if I could see that, hey, the GPS says that the bus started at 9 o'clock, but for some reason you punched in at 8:30, I can kind of pull that up and have a single interface kind of work with that stuff.
And you're saying that exists now, you just don't have it set up, or that's a work in process?
This is an update that we're rolling out Monday. So Monday we're going to have these dashboards that, these pieces of information are in our system today, but separately. So I'd have to go to one screen for my GPS, one screen for my time cards. Monday we're rolling out an update for our dashboards where I can put all that information together kind of in one workspace just to make that a little bit easier.
All right. Now I'm going to ask a question about. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Zach.
No, I was going to say, Frank. What's amazing about all this is we had a big celebration yesterday webinar, and Zach and our CEO were on with a bunch of our clients. And Zach, I forget what the guy's name was in Alabama, but he actually came out with, Frank, he's using it for payroll, and we didn't even tell him he could.
That's right.
Like I said with you, right?
That are using it, and we're working with them. We're building the kind of special reports they need. But yeah, I found that out. Jasper City Schools in Alabama is just took FormFinder and started capturing payroll themselves. Through their own system, because really all of this is front facing, right? You can build the time card, what pieces of information do I want to capture? The custom report writer is there for you, so if you want to add fields of information, if you're looking at my report that I'm running and saying, well, I wish I could see other pieces, you have access to kind of work with all this information.
That's great. I'm thinking about.
I found that amazing that a guy in Alabama figured it out, and we didn't tell them to do it.
Yeah.
I was impressed. I got to give that guy a call. See
No.
how it's running.
You know, Huntsville, Alabama has the highest PhD per capita.
That's right.
Yeah, you know they're our client too. That's why their school buses run the best.
Well, I mean,
So,
that's
right
testament.
there.
That's testament to the flexibility of a system. You know, where it can be modified for all different purposes, but it's pretty simple at its core. Sometimes when you make things too complicated, you end up with the kind of situation we're dealing with, which we want to rectify.
Yeah, and we just want to make sure we don't sell it that way, right, Frank? That it does everything.
Right.
You can find it. It probably does more than than we know,
Yeah.
but I just don't. That's my only thing.
Well,
When somebody comes back and says, hey, somebody's payroll wasn't right because of your software, that's
Yeah.
a little scary.
Exactly. Well, let me ask about this, about the data. I know we talked about, let's just be very upfront. We're paying Samsara a good amount of money for cameras, and there's a part of what we're paying them, I'm sure, is the data plan, right? There's a tremendous amount of data flowing. I want to know how that works with your system. Can we use the data the data plan within Samsara that will run your program too, or is that something separate?
Yeah, I don't see any issue. Now, I don't know Samsara's mobile device management, if they have some way that only managed devices have access to the cellular data. But again, this is downloading like a regular app through the Android App Store. If the device has cellular, like I don't see a conflict, but it's something that you really have to check. Samsara doesn't prevent other applications from accessing their cellular data that they're setting up. The reason Joe Rossi really brought it up is we've had some clients, because this is a bring your own device solution, right? You can buy whatever tablet, download our software. Some clients have run into this situation where they did that, they went and bought tablets, they downloaded our software, and the truth is our software does download information to the device. So when I go to, run a route, it's downloading those manifests to the device in case I lose cellular. If I make a bunch of changes where I add a new neighborhood into my maps in the routing platform, the tablet downloads those maps. And some of these clients, downloaded not even a gig of data. They're downloading new maps all the time, and they found they ran out of cellular data. All of a sudden, they've got no data on their devices because they hit their limits of the month.
Now, when you say data, that's different. Is that different than GPS information?
It is, yeah. So, GPS information is going to be what's tracking your location. And when I talk about cellular data, that's your ability to, access the internet, right? This is all web-based. So Wayfinder is, you log into the device and it's connecting to our cloud-hosted information so that you can see the latest route changes, you can see the pseudo manifest. So it's got to connect to the internet to be able to see that.
In other words, Frank, when you have your tablet, correct, and you had to download the Samsara app using the data provided. You're going to use that same data to download the Transfinder app, and it'll just run as is. There shouldn't be any issues using the same tablets.
No, I don't.
I don't see a problem, but again, because they're managed devices and we're not part of their managed plan, I definitely worth checking that other apps are not.
That's my concern. Is that I know, for example, like right now, the tablet has the Samsara device driver app on there and Google Maps. If I open Google Maps up, it tracks where I'm going. But that's kind of GPS. That's not necessarily data that's flowing.
It is data. It absolutely is data.
It'll be both for sure.
Right.
And the other side of that too, Frank, is you got to find out, and I don't know with Samsara, I know like with Zonar, they have the V4 unit that's on the bus that's capturing the actual GPS device that has its own cellular connection. Because it's sending those locations back to Joel and to their software via cellular connection. I don't know if the tablet's on that same data plan.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just got to ask.
I don't know.
We just got before we do this. We have to ask Samsara straight up. This is our plan, and how does it work?
Right.
Yeah, just making sure that their plan isn't blocked from using other apps with the device. Like I said, we work with a lot of bring your own device. They just buy whatever tablet, they download our app, and they pay for a data plan. I know Joe Rossi brought it up on the last call just because we did have one customer that just didn't buy enough data, and so they got a little burned by that because they needed to go and re-up their data plan to make sure that the maps weren't an issue and things like that.
All right, well, that's something that we'll have to figure out.
That said, the other piece I mentioned is, are your buses in a yard where they're able to access a Wi-Fi network or things like that? That can alleviate a lot of the data pressure too. If you're able to download your new map updates and things like that over Wi-Fi,
Yeah, not really, but I guess we'd have to see if the answer is no, they're not. But we'd have to see, if depending on if we needed a data plan, what would be the most cost-effective way to go.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's really the only real question mark I have is on the data side of it, is the data usage versus, and we'll have to figure that out offline.
Yeah, we definitely recommend unlimited, Frank, because as you start going through this stuff, depending on what their stuff does and what our stuff does, it can get pretty data heavy.
Agreed.
So I guess if you're gonna look at saving money, I wouldn't save money on a data plan. How about that?
Yeah.
You could find some other, some other.
Oh no, I agree. I just don't want to be. I don't want to be double. In other words, I don't want to be double paying for something.
Right. I understand.
I don't want to be paying all this money for Samsara, and a lot of the functionality we're not, or some of the functionality we're not going to be using. So okay.
Yeah, there's definitely some overlap there. There's no doubt about it.
Well, and I'm just thinking out loud here. Regardless, if we're going with Transfinder, we're going to have this problem whether we use forms, timesheets, or not. It's going to be the data issue.
I mean,
Yeah,
go
ahead.
To improve the Wi-Fi situation so that the buses can update and download whatever maps they need while they're at the yards. That would be more beneficial.
It's a nice solution. Definitely alleviates some of the data pressure that it puts on.
But you're still going to need data as you're driving around. It's going to have student information and all this other stuff.
Right.
You're still going to need some. Now the goal of our tablet is to be, really device forward, so that, like I said, when a driver starts their route, it does download the route temporarily locally to the device, which is nice because you still are going to hit those situations where you lose signal altogether. Our device can still run, still give you turn by turns and attendance if that happens. But you're right, you do want to, it's built to have a cellular plan while it's out running on the road.
And how do you guys do that? Suppose, for example, we were not going with Samsara at all, and we were just going to use this for routing and for timekeeping, pre-trips, all that stuff. How would the data plan work? Is that on us?
That'll be
I get this.
On the tablets we get and who we get them from.
Yeah. Essentially, bring your own device, Frank, which is why we did it this way, so that people that have Zonar tablets could download our app on their tablet. For people that don't have tablets, like school districts that have, Chromebooks or extra iPads or whatever, they could download that stuff, right? We also did it too, though, for contractors. You guys talked about signing in. I mean, literally, Joel, they could access this on their phone.
Yeah.
Which is why we had to put the XY coordinates in where they clock in, right? So they could see that they didn't do it from home. But it's up to you guys where you get access to it. That was part of the allure, Frank, for a lot of people, was you didn't have to buy GPS and all that stuff. If you're already down that road with Samsara, we do see the benefit, obviously, in having a true GPS provider, but we tried to offer it to 2,000 clients that maybe didn't have all that stuff.
I get into some of those details, but like Dave said, you can track XY coordinates. So if you want to lock where people can submit time cards so that they're not doing it from at home on the couch, you can geofence it so it can only be done at the bus yard. You can lock it to an IP range so it can only be done on your devices that you have. So we do have some tools built in for being able to manage that too.
Okay, that's great. Okay.
And that's the other problem with having 32 years of development, guys, and a CEO like ours. This stuff is in there. It's so hard to talk about it until we actually talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the Samsara has that IP range or anything like that. Somebody could be on their driver app and just log in at home, clock in at home.
Really, for most of the timekeeping, we're using XY coordinates, and we're capturing, the time they actually clock in, right? Nobody's trusting their driver to type it in the time. So it's using, the timestamp of when the forms are submitted there. But again, administrative pieces means, as an admin, if I need to go back and make a correction because they punched in 20 minutes late, I can do that. I can add in missed punches and all that as well.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, well, we appreciate the time, guys. It was very, very informative.
Perfect.
Oh, it's awesome. I learn new stuff every time we get in there. Because our people push us to show them what it does. So that's great.